But now, you guys, so much more has unfolded, and it's so insane. Like we've talked about, Sheryl Swoopes is a big name in WNBA media. She has her own podcast where she talks about all things WNBA.
Did you catch the shockwave that just rocked women's basketball? Sheryl Swoopes, yes, the Hall of Famer herself, just got fired, and it all kicked off after her controversial comments about none other than Caitlin Clark. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Enter Rachel DeMita, and things took a turn that no one saw coming. What did DeMita say that escalated everything? Stick around, because this story is about to get wild.
Just when we thought this Sheryl Swoopes drama was gonna blow over, things just got so much messier.
You won't believe what Swoopes had to say about Caitlin Clark and those who've been throwing shade her way.
A lot of people had been speculating if Sheryl Swoopes was going to cover this game because up until now she has not been able to say anything nice about Caitlin Clark, nor has she been able to even speak her name. So for this specific game against the Fever, they replaced her with another WNBA legend, Nancy Lieberman.
You're probably asking yourself, who is Sheryl Swoopes and why is her firing such massive news? Let me explain. Swoopes is a 3-time MVP in the WNBA and a Hall of Fame inductee. She's a true icon in women's basketball, so when she loses her job, it's like a shockwave hitting the entire league. And to top it off, even Stephen A. Smith isn't holding back his anger at Swoopes. But hold up, before we dive deeper into Clark's dominance, a quick reminder, most of you aren't subscribed yet. If you're loving the content and want to stay updated with all our exciting insights and analyses, hit that subscribe button now. Now let's get back to point.
Sheryl Swoopes, your champion on every level, one of the greatest players in WNBA history. Because I said, how do you mention the Indiana Fever and all of these other players and you don't mention Caitlin Clark?
But here's where things take a turn. What does Caitlin Clark, the breakout sensation everyone can't stop talking about, have to do with a Hall of Famer losing her position?
People live on television, like that is who Nancy is. When Nancy gets a chance to praise someone else and elevate them, she does it. And Nancy covered this game because of that. It set the wheels in motion more because a lot of people were like, did Sheryl Swoopes get fired? They took her off this game.
Believe me, you won't want to miss this. Just when it seems like things couldn't get more chaotic, Rachel DeMita jumps in. Her perspective on the whole ordeal is guaranteed to leave you speechless.
You literally can't even say her name. It's like Caitlin Clark is the Voldemort if Sheryl Swoopes was Harry Potter. Like literally cannot say Caitlin Clark's name. It is so bizarre and so weird.
But the drama didn't kick off with Rachel DeMita. It all started on the court, where a rising star took the WNBA by storm. Caitlin Clark's jaw-dropping performances set the stage for what would ultimately lead to a Hall of Famer's downfall. Now, let's dive into the numbers from last Friday's game against Dallas, where both Clark and Mitchell put on a show.
The Fever, they replaced her with another WNBA legend, Nancy Lieberman. The Fever came up with a big win that night. Caitlin Clark had 28 points, 5 3-pointers, 12 assists, and 4 rebounds, and Kelsey Mitchell also had an insane game, 36 points, 5 threes, also 6 rebounds, and 3 assists. This duo is the best backcourt in the WNBA.
You might be wondering, how can one player create such a stir? Well, Caitlin Clark isn't just another athlete. Since she first hit the court, she's been making headlines and capturing everyone's attention. Let's delve into the reasons behind all the buzz about her.
Ice, what's his name? Ice Baby. What's Ice Baby?
Vanilla Ice.
Vanilla Ice. No. This is not hype. It's okay. It's okay. She can play.
Yeah. She would call it. She did.
So can Angel Reese.
She had 28 tonight. She had 31. She had 31 the other night, huh?
31 the other night.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
31 and 12.
Yeah, she getting a better feel. She getting a better feel for the game.
Clark has been posting staggering points per game in her rookie season, figures that are more than impressive. They're Rookie of the Year caliber, but it's not just the stats that matter. Clark has had a transformative effect on the Indiana Fever, turning a team with a dismal 1-8 record into a winning squad. That's the kind of player who truly changes the game, and she's showing no signs of slowing down. Just recently, she set a personal best with 31 points against the Chicago Sky. Can you imagine being a rookie and achieving such remarkable numbers?
The reason that I brought up the first part about Angel Reese is this. Caitlin Clark is box office. She is a star. And Angel Reese is to be completely believed that there's no hate. They both get along. They're cool with each other. They're high-end competitors, etc., etc.
It's no surprise that she's attracting so much attention to the WNBA.
Who tries to sell you on this is selling you on something to get clicks. That's all this is. This is a phenomenon. Caitlin Clark is a phenomenon. And if I said to any of these people who think Caitlin Clark is not the Rookie of the Year, I'd say, who would you want to start your franchise with? Now, I'm not going to put Asia Wilson in there. I'm just saying between these two. Angel Reese is a wonderful player, but she does not compare to what and who Caitlin Clark is when she's on the basketball floor.
But here's the twist. Despite her phenomenal performances, Clark wasn't chosen for the Olympic team. You might be asking, how could they overlook a player making such a significant impact? Some believe this exclusion could actually benefit Clark, giving her an opportunity to rest and prepare for the WNBA season.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to say it. That's embarrassing. That's embarrassing. Team USA drawing the least amount of attendance? China and Serbia and Puerto Rico and them getting better ratings than you? Getting better attendance numbers than you? Really? Really? Should have been on the team ahead of the 12 people selected ahead of her because of basketball. I said marketing matters in everything. Promotion matters in everything. And you're not going to get around that. That is what I said. On top of that, the Fever lead the WNBA in attendance at over 16,000 fans per game. Over 4,000 more than the next closest team. So the next closest team, ladies and gentlemen, aren't even averaging 12,000 fans.
You might be wondering how this ties into Sheryl Swoopes. Here's where the controversy unfolds. Swoopes, a legend in women's basketball, made some remarks about Clark's success that stirred up quite a reaction. And trust me, her comments didn't sit well with many.
And this is definitely not the first time that Sheryl Swoopes has thrown shade or omitted Caitlin from her broadcast or from her podcast. Just last week on her podcast, her and her co-host were talking about the Indiana Fever post the Olympic break. And here's what she had to say about the Fever. I think the Olympic break really helped Indiana. I'm going to shout out to Lexi Hall. I'm a big Lexi Hall fan. Lexi Hall shot the leather off the ball in their game against Seattle. Kelsey Mitchell is just stroking. She is just shooting the basketball. Aaliyah Boston, almost a triple-double. If Indiana continues to play the way they're playing like this, they too are going to move up in the standings. And that was it, you guys. That was all she had to say about Indiana. It doesn't even make any sense. Like, not even a nod to Caitlin Clark, not even saying like Caitlin Clark's playing well or Caitlin Clark's leading the team. I don't even, like, you don't even have to be that complimentary, but leaving her out completely when she is the #1 component of that Indiana Fever team and has also been playing a lot better post this Olympic break than she was before.
There's been no mention of Caitlin Clark in the mix. Don't get me wrong, these are incredible players, but how could Clark be overlooked? To make matters worse, Swoopes questioned the validity of Clark's scoring achievements. Here's what she had to say.
So if Kelsey Plum set that record in 4 years, well, Caitlin should have broke that record in 4 years. Anything away from what she's done, but if you're talking about breaking records, then if this player did it in this amount of time, then you should do it in that.
These remarks ignited a major backlash. The conversation quickly turned to the idea of jealousy among some veteran players towards Clark's rising star. It seems like there's a growing generational divide in the WNBA, with seasoned players feeling threatened by emerging talents like Clark.
That's live.
She gets it. Ocho, take a listen to this. During the game, Nancy Lieberman, one of the pioneers, one of the great female basketball players of all time, you're going to make these women multimillionaires one day, like Tiger, like MJ. We shouldn't hate on her. We should celebrate her, not tolerate her. Now, I know somebody who said exactly what she said, but said it 4 months ago.
Swoopes had no idea her comments were about to come back to haunt her. You'd think a Hall of Famer would be beyond reproach, but that's not the case. What happened next completely altered the situation. It's almost unbelievable.
This always happens when it comes to women. I hear these stories all the time. Just in this case, the topic has to be Sheryl Swoopes saying something about Caitlin Clark that's not factual.
Ocho.
And not wanting to take accountability as well, I'm assuming.
If the least thing can cause someone to distance themselves, the friendship was never legitimate or authentic anyway. There's no way.
To begin with. Right,
Someone gets off their treadmill and call me and say, well, Shannon, you misspoke about this.
The backlash against Swoopes was massive. As soon as her comments about Caitlin Clark went public, social media went wild. Fans, players, and even other basketball legends jumped in to support Clark. It wasn't just a minor clash. It turned into a full-scale argument. People said Swoopes was jealous and couldn't handle seeing a young star like Clark outshine her. The criticism didn't just come from fans. Nancy Lieberman, another basketball great, also called out Swoopes for not giving Clark the praise she deserved.
Took her to her first ESPYs. I've known Cheryl, I've coached her, have a lot of respect for her. I called her when Caitlin was still playing at Iowa and she had just broken Maravich's record. And it was all over the place, as you and I have discussed, that, there was this quote by Cheryl that said, Caitlin was, 25 years old. She was, 24 years old. She was a fifth-year senior. Right. She was taking 40 shots a game. Her records were illegitimate.
Swoopes tried to defend her comments by tweeting that she had the right to discuss players she knows personally. However, this just added fuel to the fire, making the situation even more explosive. Then came the shocking twist. The WNBA decided to replace Swoopes for an upcoming game. Ron Thulin and Nancy Lieberman were brought in as her replacements. This move sent a powerful message. The league no longer trusted Swoopes to provide unbiased commentary on Caitlin Clark. It was a dramatic shift that underlined the severity of the fallout.
But there's more to the story, you guys. Stephen A. Smith actually called out Sheryl Swoopes on his Stephen A. Smith show, specifically talking about this clip in the podcast where she just completely omitted Caitlin Clark's name. He was basically talking about how she continues to hate on Caitlin Clark, and it's basically pushing the narrative that the media and other players in the WNBA and people in general are just hating on Caitlin Clark when there seems to be no reason why. So when you start to try to figure out the reasoning, all you can think of is maybe they're jealous, maybe they think it should have been them, maybe they don't like how much praise Caitlin Clark is getting. It doesn't make sense. So
this wasn't just a decision about one game. It marked a major turning point in Swoopes' career as a commentator. The WNBA's move was a powerful statement. They weren't going to let anyone, even a Hall of Famer, obstruct the rise of their new stars. You might be asking why the WNBA took such a drastic step. It's all about safeguarding the future of the sport. Caitlin Clark isn't just another player. She's a game changer who's drawing in a whole new audience for women's basketball. The WNBA couldn't risk having anyone, regardless of their past accolades, damage her burgeoning reputation.
Essentially, you're employed by the WNBA. Everything that you're doing is around the WNBA. It's not a good look. And it's especially not a good look because you are a legendary player yourself. Before all of this, I was a Sheryl Swoopes fan. I feel like any player growing up in the 90s, early 2000s, like Sheryl Swoopes, Lisa Leslie, those women were like the gold standard of basketball. So it's just so weird to me for her to just be hating. There's no other way to describe it as she's just clearly hating.
This entire drama highlights just how intense and competitive women's basketball has become.
So Stephen A. Smith called her out and she clapped back on Twitter and she said, "You talk about whomever and whatever you want on your podcast, correct? So why can't I? Also, did you listen to the entire episode? Nope. I have a personal relationship with these players and they deserve recognition."
In today's game, every word and every comment is scrutinized. One misstep and even a legendary figure can end up sidelined.
Make that version more efficient because these record numbers of turnovers, game after game after game, she's now averaging 5.7 turnovers per game. We've never seen any player, no elite level player, turn the ball over at this level in the WNBA or the NBA.
This isn't just a story about Swoopes and Clark anymore. It's a matter of the entire WNBA. How does the league strike a balance between honoring its legends and supporting its rising stars? It's a delicate balancing act, and Swoopes just stumbled.
26 away from UNESCO of the New York Liberty. My WNBA Player of the Week, surprise, surprise, Indiana Fever rookie sensation, Caitlin Clark. There's nothing really to say other than that. She's winning Rookie of the Year. She's a top candidate for league MVP honors. She ain't beating Asia Wilson for the MVP, but she's beating Angel Reese for the Rookie of the Year. That's a wrap. That's over. And
but here's the twist. The story isn't over. Just when it seemed like the drama had peaked, another voice stepped into the fray, and she came in swinging.
So why can't I? Also, did you listen to the entire episode? Nope. I have a personal relationship with these players and they deserve recognition.
And here's what Stephen had to say in response.
That she seems to get offended with her objectivity being questioned, her professional objectivity. The problem is, she's the one that brought her professional objectivity into focus by her own behavior. What possible excuse could you have? Talking about the Indiana Fever and nary a mention of Caitlin Clark. How is that possible? How's that possible? You know what Indiana was before she arrived. You know what their attendance was before she arrived. You know what merchandise sales was before she arrived. You know what attendance was before she arrived. You know what the ratings were before she arrived. How could you not mention her? It makes no sense.
So, why would a former NBA TV host risk her reputation to back Caitlin Clark? The answer might surprise you. Rachel DeMita isn't just another name in basketball media. She's a former Division I player who made a name for herself as the host of NBA TV and has since become a respected voice in the basketball world. When DeMita speaks, people listen. So, when she decided to weigh in on the Caitlin Clark controversy, it wasn't just another opinion, it was a game changer. DeMita went all in, defending Clark with a fervor that even surprised her biggest supporters. Her comments weren't just about backing Clark, they were a bold challenge to the traditionalists in women's basketball. DeMita called out the sport's double standards, highlighting how male athletes receive praise for their achievements, while female stars often face undue criticism for the same feats.
I would also like to elevate all of these other players. No shade to Caitlin. Literally, that would end all of this. She also tweeted out today, she said, FYI, I am not employed by the WNBA, and this was in reference to the people saying like, hey, it's okay if you dislike Caitlin Clark, but it's really not professional of you to be shading her the way that you are, not mentioning her if you are working for the WNBA.
You might be asking, what exactly did she say? Here's the rundown. DeMita highlighted Clark's significant impact on the game, emphasizing how she's attracting new fans to women's basketball. Instead of criticizing Clark, DeMita argued that veterans should be celebrating her accomplishments. But it gets even more compelling. DeMita didn't just support Clark, she took aim at the critics. She questioned why some former stars feel threatened by fresh talent, rather than guiding and supporting them. It was as if she was reflecting the whole basketball community's attitudes back at them.
Be perpetuating and not shutting down the fact that she just clearly hates Caitlin Clark is, I don't know, I've said it a million times, weird. And Sheryl Swoopes seemingly disliking Caitlin Clark hasn't just happened in the past couple months. This actually dates way back to when Caitlin Clark beat the NCAA scoring record for both the men and the women. She went on Gilbert Arenas' podcast, and here are some of the things that she had to say about Caitlin. She said that Caitlin Clark is a 25-year-old beating up on young kids, which she is currently 22.
The response to DeMita's comments was electric. Social media exploded with fans and players rallying behind her. Many hailed her as courageous for speaking out, while others felt she voiced what everyone was thinking, but too hesitant to say. DeMita pointed out that Caitlin Clark, at just 25, seems to dominate young players, a trend she noted is currently happening. She mentioned that Clark takes about 40 shots per game, though Clark's average was 22.3 field goal attempts per game at Iowa last season, and 19.7 for her entire career there. For comparison, Sheryl Swoopes averaged 24 shots per game during her 2 years at Texas Tech.
She only played 4 years and then immediately went to the WNBA. So all of that is false. And then later on, when it was essentially brought up that she was spreading misinformation, she basically said like, sorry.
But not everyone agreed. Some accused DeMita of disrespecting the legends of the game, claiming she didn't fully grasp the history and traditions of women's basketball. The debate continued to heat up, with DeMita at the center of the storm. So, why did DeMita's words make such a big impact? The answer is straightforward. She wasn't just commenting on Caitlin Clark. She was tackling a broader issue in women's sports, the tension between honoring the past and welcoming the future, and the need for unity in a sport striving for greater recognition. DeMita's passionate defense of Clark didn't just advocate for one player. It highlighted a deeper problem in how rising stars are perceived in women's basketball. Her remarks prompted a critical examination of how young talent is treated in the sport.
Atlanta, the Indiana Fever have their first playoff berth since 2016. 2 years ago, their home attendance was 1,800 fans. Their average this year, home attendance, is 17,000. That's almost 10 times. And, of course, the big difference is Caitlin Clark. I think she should be up for MVP. Rookie of the Year, foregone conclusion.
Wow. Can you believe how this Caitlin Clark situation has exploded? It's no longer just about one player. It's shaking up the entire world of women's basketball. Legends like Swoopes are getting fired over their comments, while new voices like DeMita are stepping in to defend the rising stars. It's like we're witnessing a clash between the old guard and the new generation unfold right before our eyes. So, what are your thoughts? How can we best support emerging talent in women's basketball? Is this the start of a new era? Share your opinions in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more updates and in-depth analysis. This debate is just getting started.
Stop this. Y'all mad because that corn-fed Iowa girl busting y'all ass. Y'all said she too weak. She can't do this. She lead the WNBA in assists. She cooking. Let her cook. Let her cook.